It's common filmmaking practice to always make sure you stick the landing, and while that is most definitely true and you want your audiences to go home happy, it's equally important to start out on the right foot. After all, who would want to watch your tale of intrigue and suspense if they've already given up before the half-hour mark? Therefore, you'll see directors try their absolute best to create opening scenes that have impact, action, explosions, and sometimes good old-fashioned murder in order to turn our heads and keep our bums in those seats. And just because this list is going to detail such brilliant first scenes, that doesn't always mean that the films that they're from are actually any good. Far from it in some cases, but it just goes to show that even stinkers can shine straight out of the gate sometimes. With this in mind, I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 movies that peaked in their opening scenes. Number 10. X2, XMen United. This film hits an immediate high in its first 5 minutes as Nightcrawler breaches the Oval Office and attempts to assassinate the President of the United States. The blue-skinned mutant uses his teleportation abilities to dismantle the POTUS's security detail in effortless fashion, but before he can stab the President, he's struck by a bullet and takes his exit. Given how heavily the sequence relies on visual effects, it's shocking how well it's aged, which is actually a testament to Bryan Singer's kinetic direction, and that is to say nothing of the use of Mozart that really ties all of this together. Now don't get me wrong, this is the sort of film that never really dips in quality throughout its runtime, but when you have an opening this good, well, it blows everything else out of the water. Number 9. Scream. I know that Scream's big reveal is absolutely jaw-dropping the first time you watch it, and is easily one of the film's standout moments, but you can't deny that the opening was anything short of perfection. From a horror setup perspective, it has everything. The inversion of safety provided by your own home, the use of mobile phones, which at the time were emerging as the next big tech boom, and even showing a huge amount of self-awareness through the interrogation of Casey's horror movie knowledge. And then there's, of course, the horrible act itself. This white-knuckle 10-minute sequence honestly might be the best thing that Craven has ever directed, as it's basically a short film that stands tall on its own. It delicately blends self-aware writing with dread-soaked direction, and with Barrymore being unexpectedly killed off so early on, it sets a grim, expectation-defying tone from the outset. Number 8. Watchmen. Zack Snyder's Watchmen is easily one of the most divisive movies on this list, but you know what? He gave it a fair shake when all those around him were saying that this source material was pretty much unfilmable. And true, it is very long and some of it is pretty tone-deaf, but that opening, my god, it still sends shivers down my spine. And I'm not just talking about that fantastic title sequence that shows the changes to the movie's timeline, and also Batman for some reason, but actually of the fight between the comedian and the, at the time, mystery opponent. The fight is so well choreographed, and being interrupted with impressive visual stimuli means that by the time that the comedian has hit the ground, your jaw was already there minutes ago. Unfortunately, it's the type of opening that completely overshadows the rest of the film, and while the following action was pretty good, nothing will match the style and confidence of this opening conflict. Number 7. Drive. It's fair to say that this crime drama really wasn't for everyone. I mean, those people who dislike it are wrong, but then again, each to their own. This art house action drama was refreshing to a market oversaturated with over-the-top carnage, and staunchly refused to rely on the same cliches as its peers. However, that doesn't mean that it can't thrill where it counts, and in the opening car chase, we are witness to not only some absolutely claustrophobic editing, but also a brilliantly sweaty palm delivery of the chromatics tick of the clock. Whether you love the rest of the movie or find it a willfully plodding slog, it never again reaches this level of sustained tension, excitement, or sheer cool. Unless we not forget, this has Gosling in it, so it's hovering around a solid 9 on the cool scale, even on the lowest of ebbs. Number 6. Casino Royale. Though many will point to Casino Royale's unforgettable Madagascar chase as the film's show-stealing opening scene, this sequence doesn't actually kick off until 10 minutes into the movie, and even then, in terms of tension and importance, it falls way short when compared to the black and white introduction to the legendary spy, which, when you think about it, is actually the worst thing for a spy to be, well known. With its eerie, quiet, and silky smooth dialogue, the scene would feel more at home in an art house flick rather than a Bond film, and the way that it cuts between this and Bond's first kill is delicious. We get to see the struggle of Bond, how his inexperience and frustrated attacks are counter to his cool and suave persona. that in this instant he is just a man with failings and weaknesses, and that's something that's only ever been touched on before, and it is brilliant to finally get this insight. While the rest of the film hits high after high, this is the most impactful moment for the character that has endured for so long. Number 5. Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. So if we're being honest, despite oodles of impressive style and a remarkable Affleck performance, Batman vs Superman was a thoroughly sloppy mess of half-baked ideas, conflicting tones, and nonsensical subplots. The Ultimate Edition fixed some of these issues, but it's still a film that's rough around the edges. But you know what? That opening? My God, was it good. Here we see a juxtaposition of the murder of Thomas and Martha Wayne against Bruce's dream of him running away from his parents' funeral and discovering the Batcave. It's beautifully shot, as you'd expect from Snyder, wonderfully scored, and gives audiences the most intense rendition of the Waynes' deaths yet put to screen. And while the rest of the film tries its best to capture this level of emotion, it's undone time and again by scenery chewing and, well, to put it frankly, meme-worthy moments. Number 4. La La Land. Nominated for a record-tying 14 Oscars and winning 6 of them, including Best Director and Best Actress, there's little point denying that La La Land is a great movie, and it definitely puts its best tap shoe foot forward with its opening dance number, which is, in short, breathtaking. Another Day of Sun takes place on a congested Los Angeles freeway and features dozens of drivers spontaneously exiting their cars to belt out a song and dance number. And through clever blending of 3 separate takes, the opening feels like one seamless 6-minute masterpiece. The camera work and choreography is absolutely mind-blowing, all things considered. And while the rest of the film is equally impressive musically, you have to admit that this level of technical skill isn't replicated anywhere else. And that's not a bad thing, as honestly, we'd be exhausted if it was. Number 3. 28 Weeks Later. With none of the principal cast returning and Danny Boyle passing off directing duties, it's fair to say that expectations weren't that high for this belated sequel to Boyle's 2002 lo-fi zombie classic. Therefore, all the stops were pulled out to prove everyone wrong. And what we got was a zombie short film that precedes a good but not great main body of work that was utterly fantastic. I don't think I've ever been this tense watching a zombie film, and that is saying something. Here we see Don and his wife Alice hiding out in a remote cottage after the rage virus has broken out, but their cover is blown when a young boy begs for shelter, bringing with him a horde of the infected. In the sequence that follows, Don's fellow survivors are massacred, and he makes the horrible choice to abandon his wife to ensure his own survival. It's genuinely upsetting to watch each and every time he does this, and it puts the film on such a high level that the rest simply couldn't live up to expectations. Number 2. The Dark Knight Rises. Though the narrative is riddled with strange choices, The Dark Knight Rises is still a thoroughly entertaining superhero opera, jam-packed with eye-popping action, emotionally involving character arcs, and strong performances throughout. However, that intro to Bane in the opening, wow, that was just something special. The sequence, which not so subtly homages the James Bond franchise, sees Bane captured by the CIA and transported on a plane with a nuclear physicist in tow. But of course, once Bane is allowed to speak, he reveals that getting caught was all blood of the blood, and his cronies show up to carry out an ambitious mid-air liberation of both himself and the physicist. Given that so much of the sequence was achieved practically, it goes without saying that it must have been an absolute headache to film. It was surely worth it though, as the extremely tactile and believable nature of the otherwise absurd set piece undeniably enhances the audience's immersion, and as an introduction to Bane, it is almost otherworldly as a result. And number 1, Touch of Evil. 1958's film noir Touch of Evil is an insidiously grim tale of murder and corruption transpiring on the US-Mexico border, and it's best remembered for its jaw-dropping 3.5-minute opening sequence, which transpires over a single unbroken take. Here, a bomb is placed inside a car, the car is driven across the US border, and it consequently explodes. In 1958, this was kind of revolutionary, yet even today it demonstrates a filmmaker in full mastery of their craft, taking an urgent ticking clock scenario and mining every possible drop of suspense from it. The remainder of the movie is plenty entertaining for sure, but it never again feels this unique, technically accomplished, or efficient in its storytelling. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 movies that peaked in their opening scenes. I hope that you enjoyed that, my friends, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. If you want to chat to me further about films, movies, TV, video games, wrestling, anything else, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ. As always, I've been Jules, you have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon.